we can create teams that will effectively innovate consistently and effectively. And the fact that good ideas are not enough, you know, we actually need a lot more to make innovation work. There's a little bit of a background noise. I don't know if you can mute that. Okay, great, thank you. So just a quick synopsis. Okay, I think I was muted then, so I'm unmuting myself. Just a quick synopsis of myself, and then Edmund can say a couple of words about him, and then it'd be good to find a little bit more about you, if you can start to put that in the chat box. And then Edmund and I will also talk a little bit about our businesses and what we do. So my name is Natalie Turner. I'm the founder, the CEO of the Entheo Network. It's an innovation company that was set up in London by myself and a few others back in 2006. And I moved to Singapore back in 2010. And I now live in Malaysia, but I work across Southeast Asia and Europe predominantly. I'm the author of the book called Yes, You Can Innovate, which is all around discovering your innovation strengths and developing your creative potential. And I'm the inventor of a model called the 6 Eyes of Innovation, which we'll be sharing with you today. Edmund, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Edmund. I moved over to Cambodia five and a half years now. And I've been working regionally in businesses for the last 15 years. So whatever it is that I work on, generally speaking, has been like practical business and taking business ideas and getting the most out of them. Working together with Natalie has been fantastic, because the idea of innovation has always been very important when it comes to businesses, and especially now that Cambodia is like really on the up and up, now that your business environment can change really quickly, now that the competition is increasing, the idea of innovation becomes very central to business continuing and becoming better and better, especially in places like Cambodia. So it is my hope that we will be able to share some ideas with you moving forward in this next hour, that you can be able to benefit from it.
Great, thanks Edmund. So yeah, it'd be good just to hear where you're from, not obviously vocally, but maybe in the chat box, you could just write a little bit more about yourself, where you're dialing in from. I know a lot of you are obviously in Cambodia, but I think there's a few other people as well with regards to across the region. So yes, if you can just type in a little bit, that would be great. Edmund, maybe you can make a few comments because I can't see the participant list here.
It seems that most of us are from Cambodia. There are some people joining us from outside of Cambodia. It's always nice to see everyone. But yeah, good. Would be great if we can know like who you are and where you're from. There is Priscilla from Ho Chi Minh. Welcome. Sang from Vietnam, hello. Lakana, hello. From PSC Cambodia, hello. Reno, Apatri Foods, welcome. Sopik, nice to meet you. Sarun for Emirates. Hello, Wendy. Hope things are good in Vietnam. So, great.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's great. Let's kick off then. Everybody is welcome, and we do hope that you find today informative and useful for yourselves in the business. Okay, so let me just start by giving you a little bit of background to the business that I have created. And then Edmund will take you a little bit through the capacity specialist before we dive into the content of today. So as I said, I set up a business called the NPO Network back in 2006 in London and brought it over to Asia. And really what we focus on is helping organizations to create new sources of value from new ideas, maybe not new to the world all the time, but new to them. And this could be new products, it could be new services, it could be new processes, business models, all different aspects around the outcome, if you like, the what we call the what of innovation. We also focus on how, because it's not just about what we create, it's how we do it. And how we do it and how we learn to do it and get better at it is all about people. It's about the skills of people that are in the organization. It's about the mindsets and the ways of thinking. It's about know-how. It's about having the right tools and approaches and processes. And it's also about culture and building the organizational culture that enables innovation to happen. So these are very, very important areas. It's not just what, it's how, because how helps the what actually be created. And it's also why. So why we actually innovate in the first place. So getting the alignment, defining purpose, getting clarity, whether it's big or small, you know, in terms of what you're trying to do. Some of you might be aware of Simon Sinek's book, All Around Why. So it's really about getting deep to understand why we're trying to innovate. And I think we all know we're in a very, very interesting time right now with the COVID virus going around the world, and all of our countries, all of our businesses are being forced now, whether we like it or not, to innovate, to come up with new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, new ways of working. So now more than ever, innovation is a survival skill. It really is. So that's the sort of areas that we focus on. And then within that, we have a model, which I will take you through later, called the 6 I's of innovation. We profile teams because we want to understand how do the individuals in the organizations, in the teams, contribute their skill sets. And it's not just about being creative. If we're going to be innovative, we've got to have a lot of different types of skills. So we profile and we help to build teams that can enable new ideas to work. And we do this through workshops and programs. And now, obviously, because of the situation we're in, doing more virtual delivery and virtual support for organizations, because we can't actually sit in the same room so much as we used to even a few months ago. We have toolkits and coaching and innovation management systems to help manage innovation. Because we can't just leave it to chance. We can't just leave it to a leader coming up with an idea and everyone sort of following that idea. Innovation has to come from everywhere. So we need a way to manage it. And we also certify individuals in our methodology. So Edmund, for example, has been certified as a 6 I's certified practitioner in Cambodia, and he's our first person in Cambodia that we have trained. Edmund, do you want to say a couple of words about the capacity specialists?
Yep. Thank you very much, Natalie. So capacity specialist has been in Cambodia since 2010. And what we do is that we focus on actually not just training, but also on achieving actual business positive results for clients. And then after we do that through learning and training solutions, but we also do that very much through behavior change. We do that a lot by getting very involved with our partners, businesses, and actually trying to create change from inside the organization. Yeah, and we've been getting really good results so far. And maybe later on during the webinar, I can share a little bit more about some of the work that we've done surrounding 6Is in some of the companies here in Cambodia.
Okay, thanks, Edmund. So we titled this webinar today, Ideas Are Not Enough. Oftentimes when we ask people, you know, what does it mean to be innovative? Normally the first thing people say is to be creative. And whilst that is true, we need creativity, absolutely. Without creativity, we have no innovation because we don't have any new thinking or new different thinking. It's more than creativity. So having ideas is not enough. We need to know why, particularly now, maybe more than ever. Why are we innovating and what is our purpose? We need to know what is it we want to create, and for what end? What are we actually trying to achieve? What value do we want to create? We also need to look at this how aspect, you know, how we build the skills up of our people. And I assume that all of you or most of you manage people or are in some form of management or leadership role, whether you're in the people side of the business or in the commercial or the marketing or whatever. You're in a company, you're in an organization where you have to get things done through people. And so your role is very, very critical in enabling and building an innovative way of working. And exploring and discovering how to do this, you know, how do we do this? Because it's one thing to say, yes, go and be innovative. It's another thing to say, okay, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to me in my job to be innovative? And this is one of the reasons I wrote my book, Yes, You Can Innovate, because I believe that we need to make innovation a survival skill, a really deep competence for people, regardless of what they do, what their job is and who they are, and to really upskill people so that they can innovate in the day-to-day work. Not that innovation is just for scientists or technologists or people in labs or even just to do with digital. It's a lot more than that. So this is really, you know, the premise of what we want to talk about today. Edmund,
Right.
do you want to say a few words about business continuity, yeah?
I think that one of the things which 6Is can really help with at this point in time is things related to business continuity, things related to operations, staff, Marcom, and really maybe just looking at the environment around us and maybe even looking for some place to grow. But I do see that some people are really getting quite excited about exactly what this model is talking about. And what 6Is actually mean and how does that now then apply to their businesses. So let us go back to providing business continuity in a bit. Natalie, do you want to take us through what the 6Is are talking mean?
Yeah, I will go through that in a minute. I want to focus on the challenges first. So, so yeah, I'll dive into that in a moment. So you can come back in to talk around the business continuity then after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about innovation, what we're talking about is creating value out of ideas that are new to you. So that's our definition. That's what we start with. So my first question to you, and something that you can think about in your job, in your role, in your organization, what does it mean to be innovative? When you say the word innovation, what does that mean to you in your mind? And do you actually have a shared understanding of it amongst your colleagues? If you don't, and even if you think you may have, it's a good place to start, because this gets people just talking about, well, what does it mean for me to be innovative? And what does it mean for us to be innovative? So once we've done that and we think about our roles, if we think about the role of management, it's about actually creating the environment where, in the way that we manage people, lead people, build the organizational culture and organizational design to help support the people that we engage and employ to come up with ideas and to be able to make those ideas work. Because otherwise what can happen is you can hire people, and they can be very, very creative people as well. And you can put them inside the organization, and the organizational culture and the management system of the culture of that business can actually stop any innovation and new ideas coming up. So it's a very, very important role for you to think about yourself as a leader and a manager of innovation, not just like a department that is called the innovation department, but what does it mean to be leading and managing innovation in HR or in sales or in marketing or all the different functions of an organization. So 60% of Singaporean HR managers say that it's a key people challenge. Is that true for you? And Edmund, if on the yes and the no, I know Peck said earlier about the voting, maybe everybody can put what yes or a no, just to make it a little bit more interactive against their names. Let's see how many green ticks we have and red crosses. Quite a few green ticks. Nobody's saying it's not a challenge so far. Any comments, Edmund? Okay, I think we can be fair to say that it is a challenge. Maybe not everyone knows how to use the green ticks. So let's move on and let's have a look at what some of the challenges may be in building teams. What are your biggest challenges? So maybe you can write the number by these different challenges if you think that they're a challenge for you in your organization. So let me list up some of the ones that companies say to us over and over and over again that is a challenge. One, it's not a priority, or I haven't got time to innovate. It's a really interesting thing if we think about that statement, I don't have time to innovate. So what are we doing then? Well, we're just doing our job. So do you not innovate in your job? Well, I didn't really think about it that way, yeah? So if we don't have time for it, it means it isn't prioritized or understood. So that is normally the top one that comes up. Secondly, I don't have a process for managing innovation. Most organizations don't have a process for managing innovation. They may have idea boxes or a technology to crowdsource some ideas, but really they are not managing those ideas then through to creation of something valuable. So a lot of companies don't have a way to manage. No agreement, like I said earlier, no agreement of what it means to be innovative, or too operational, too much focused on just execution and getting things done without really thinking of the bigger picture. Lack of tools, don't really know how to innovate, or they're waiting for instructions for someone else to tell them what to do, and then they'll do it. So these are some of the things that we see come up over and over again. So maybe in the chat box, and Edmund, could you make some comments on this, because I'm not able to see the chat box, what people are saying. So you can write in the number if you like, if you think it's number 2 that's the biggest challenge or barrier, then you can put number 2 or number 4. And if you've got other ones, then just to mention some of those as well. Okay, I'm starting to see some. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just keeping a tally for everybody. Yeah,
Yeah,
2,
good.
4, 6, 1 and 5, 1, 5, 7. Mm-hmm. 3, 6, 1 and 5. Excellent. 6, 2 and 5. 1 and 6. Thank you very much. 2, 3 and 6. Thank you. 1, 5.
I think they've all been covered in some way. And there probably are others as well. I don't know, is there a top one that you're seeing, Edmund?
Definitely lack of time. Number 1 and 5 are going are pretty up there.
Right, yeah.
Hmm.
Tools, I can see there. Budget's very interesting as well when we come to look at the invest stage. Yeah, this is world over. Yeah, I've worked all over the world with innovation, and it's not like you see in some companies or organizations they're that much different to each other. It's common. These are very, very common issues and challenges. So you can be assured that you are in the company of other people that also find this a challenge. And this is why innovating is hard work. Any comments?
Right, Natalie.
Yeah.
I think the top 3 are number one is number one, not a priority, and then after that, tied for second place is 5 and 6.
Right, interesting then.
Mm.
So now, you know, we're living in this very interesting time right now, aren't we? And so I can assure you it will become a priority. If it hasn't become a priority today, by next week it will become a priority. I don't know about you and where you are right now, but Malaysia is in lockdown. No one can go out. All the shops are shut, bar the supermarkets. All universities, schools, everything is shut. Parks are shut. We can't even walk out on the street. So, of course, everyone is now innovating. They are rapidly trying to come up with new ideas, whether it's takeaway services or new ways of doing things, new ways of collaborating and working. So I think this priority issue is going to actually go away, and innovating will come to the top, because if we don't innovate, we won't survive, and our businesses will really suffer in the next few months. And I think this other one about lack of tools and know-how is important too. We need to have tools, we need to have approaches, we need to have practical things that can help us to innovate. So that's what we're going to share with you a little bit today, just to give you some ideas around that. Any comments from you, Edmund, before we move on?
It's really interesting that when it comes down to the ideas of innovation, one of the great things that I really like about the 6 I's is that it's not just focusing on ideas, but it is a holistic process that takes ideas and actually taking it all the way through to implementation. Innovation, as Natalie said, is not just about ideas. It is about actually turning those ideas into something which happens. And I think that very many companies are not amazing, or they can do a lot better at turning ideas into actual tangible results. And yes, and we are definitely lacking the tools to do it. And when it comes to senior management, generally speaking, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard a lot of companies, not just here in Cambodia, but also in Singapore, regionally. Innovation is important. Innovation is super important. And then after that, senior management tells the staff, okay, go find a way to innovate. And everybody just looks at senior management and goes, huh? No idea what the hell to do. And that's where it starts to fail. Innovation is a directive, but because senior management doesn't know where to start, there are no instructions from innovation, from management, and because the culture is not built into place, there are no tools. So it dies right there.
Okay, thank you, Edmund. Yeah. Okay, so these are some of the obstacles that we also see, and these also come from a research paper on obstacles to innovation from what a lot of senior executives say. One is slow development times, the time that it takes internally to get something to work, something new, to get it out there. And I think that's why we're seeing a rise of agile, a rise of sprints, a rise of these different ways that we can iterate and experiment and prototype, because the old way of working is too slow. So it's this sort of getting this speeding up the way that we work and taking away the barriers to speed is very important. A lack of coordination is another one that comes up a lot of the time. You know, one part of the organization doesn't know what another part is doing, and they're not working together. And three, getting good insight from the market, from customers, from clients, from users, from stakeholders. Being externally focused is another big obstacle. Companies tend to be very insular. They look inside themselves. They're not looking out enough to what's going on around them. So these were actually cited in a PricewaterhouseCoopers. You know, 70% of senior executives name innovation as one of their top 3 priorities, but almost half say they're dissatisfied. So that's a big gap. It's a big gap between the desire and the reality. And they are the main reasons. And it's interesting when we look at the reasons, and all the reasons that I listed as well earlier, they are not a lot of them about the idea itself. They're not that, oh, we've had some really good ideas and they haven't worked. It's actually to do with people, management, systems, culture, organizational design, leadership. They're all to do with the people element. So these are the things that we need to really be looking at. So let's do another quick poll before I go into the 6 I's. Are you, as in, is your organization investing in innovation? That means time, resources, manpower, money, commitment. Let's see how many of you actively have a plan around innovating in your organizations. So if you would like to tick the yes, the little green yes here, then we can see how many of you are. Oh, that's good. One person, one organization here is Lee Kenner. A few are, okay, good. If you can do this quite quickly, just to press the green for yes or the red for no. Okay. So for those of you that are, the green ticks, are you satisfied? Are you feeling, yes, we're getting some great results through our innovation efforts and through what we're doing? Are you satisfied with what's happening? Are you satisfied? That's good. Great if some are satisfied, because that means you can just get better, you know, better at what you're doing. Those who aren't, then it is time to start to really think about this and to think about it quite seriously. Okay. Edmund, any comments from you before I dive into the 6 I's?
Not yet. Please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're all aware that there are a lot of challenges A lot of the time we don't really know what innovation really means, and it's time to even start that discussion and to get it out into the organizations and into our teams. So let me give you a brief overview now of the 6 I's and why I invented it. And if I take you back a few years, I have a background in corporate innovation and in incubators and working on getting new ideas out to market in large organizations. And I also worked as an innovation director for a research firm where we were responsible for generating new product and service ideas. And we would use diagrams like this, you know, to help us. So we do lots of brainstorming, and then we would refine the idea, and then we would develop it a bit more, and then hopefully something innovative would pop out the end of the funnel. And after a while of doing this, I realized it doesn't work like this, particularly nowadays where it's a lot more complicated, and also for innovations that aren't necessarily products. How can a service idea necessarily work through this, or a process innovation, or a business model innovation? So these sort of older ways of thinking aren't really that useful. So what I wanted to do was create a model that would bring together a lot of different aspects around innovating. And it's called the 6 I's. So you can see here, hopefully, that it's a circular model. We've got these 6 I's around the outside: identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, and improve. They're distinct stages that ideas flow through. So an idea may be generated in Ignite, but it needs to be investigated. It needs to be invested in. So it has a different stage. And in those different stages, we need very different ways of thinking and very different skills. And they've all got different colors as well that represent the stages. Now you'll see right in the middle, we've got purpose, which is a black color, and it's a neutral color. And this explores the why. Whenever we work with organizations, we start with purpose to understand what is it we're trying to do and why. Because a lot of the time, people aren't in agreement about what they're trying to do. So it's an important thing to be thinking about, and also thinking about what they're trying to create. Is it going to have meaningful purpose to them, to their customers, to the world around them? There's not always the same starting point. So when we teach this, we start with purpose, we move into identify. If you're starting with a blank sheet of paper, that's what I would recommend. Start with why, move into identify, then into ignite. Then you may go back and identify again. You might then be investigating the ideas. So you will be dancing around identify, ignite, and investigate quite a lot before you probably even invest anything. So there's not always the same starting point. It's useful for managing innovation as a tool. So you can imagine how many of your different ideas are in different stages of this journey that ideas take. And then you can see these 2 triangles that actually link each of the I's into purpose. I don't know if you know the game Twister. It's like a big game. You have a mat on the floor and people twist their body and they've got to step on different colors and things. It's a bit like that. Innovating is, you know, backwards and forwards. You're not going in a straight road or a straight journey. There's lots of dead ends, lots of things don't work. But you need to have a map. You need to know where you are. So I created this because I wanted to give something useful to businesses, to individuals, to help them understand where their ideas are in a flow and in a journey, so that they could get better and quicker at getting their ideas out into the world. Edmund, do you have any illustration from a Cambodian perspective maybe that you want to share of the 6 I's?
I think that when it comes to smaller organizations, the 6 I's is part of it. Is not really spoken, in the sense that if somebody has an idea, especially if the boss has an idea, you know, the boss identifies the problem, the boss finds an idea or asks for a few people's idea, and then after he will go and maybe pick one that he likes, just because, and then because the boss likes it, and then it goes straight to implementation. Um, and then after that, fingers crossed it works. If it doesn't work, and then after that, the whole cycle starts all over again. For small organizations, for smaller 2, 3, 5 employee um, small businesses, it is easy to do it this way. Um, the challenge comes when it comes to larger organizations, when you have got separate departments, say for example in an MFI, or say for example if you are working in a conglomerate, like say for example RMA or Chipmunk, or and what happens is that there are big separate business units that that require innovation. And what happens is that then management and employees now have a separation, and maybe some things would work on the ground. Maybe employees have ideas and it doesn't flow up to the management, or maybe what happens is that management has in a direction, but it makes it very difficult to come all the way down to execute as far as the employee is concerned. So what happens is that there's this lack of process in the middle of, well, we have got all these ideas, which one is better, which one do you want to try and check out? Do we um, do we bring in a few of our customers or check in with them? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then afterwards, just how much money do we actually need? How much manpower? How are we going to experiment with it before we actually do a system-wide implementation? And that is something which large organizations usually struggle with, and which is why, you know, if it's so hard, if it's so complicated, then don't do. Then we'll just do whatever it is that we have done uh, last year, last week, last month, because that was always what used to work.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and yeah, and then after innovation just dies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you've highlighted some really good points there, and particularly how things can get stuck, and how ideas can just stop at certain stages, and how dependent we are on certain individuals saying yes or no, rather than having a culture of it where people are constantly innovating and coming up with new ideas in their day jobs just as much as on projects. Okay, so let us go deeper into this then. Now, at the center is purpose, which is all about why, why we're trying to innovate. And so when we dive into these 6 areas, this is what it means. And so be thinking now about your organization, because I'm going to ask you in a minute, which of these I's do you think your organization is strongest at? Do you think you're stronger at identifying opportunities? You're open-minded, you're curious, you're looking outside, you can see what's going on, you're good at trend spotting, etc. Do you think you're good at igniting new ideas, that you've got a lot of creativity and you can see how ideas might address the needs of your market? Or do you think you're good at investigating? Are you out there testing, prototyping, design thinking, validating, bringing stakeholders and users into the process? Or maybe you think you're good at investing. And I don't mean just good at normal business planning. I mean investing in innovation, investing in new things, investing in things that may have a bit more of a higher risk around them. Or implementation. Are you really good at getting an idea out there and making it work? Or improvement. Are you better at looking at what already exists and then seeing how it could maybe be used elsewhere? So in the chat box now, have a write in which of the I's do you think your organization is strongest at? And you, of course, will have a mixture. This is just a sort of top of mind, you know, if you had to pick one, which one would you pick? Let's see what I's come up the most in this group today. So if you could just write the I, as in identify or ignite, etc., in the chat box.
Okay, just to be clear, Natalie,
you can do it quite quickly. Yeah, we've got a few more slides to go through.
You want everyone to write down.
Yes, so
what is the
Priscilla's
strongest...
put in identify. She thinks her organization is strongest at identify.
Right, okay.
Does everybody understand? Okay, well, we probably have to move on because I'm just aware of time. But have a think, because this is very, very important. It's very important to know what your strength is, so you can leverage it, but it's also important to know what you don't think you're so good at, so you can build the capability. And if you don't think you're good at any of them, well, then you can start. Now, today is the day to start thinking about this. Okay, let me move on. You can carry on putting in your I's, and Edmund, maybe you can just keep an eye on that while I continue. So as I said earlier, I wrote a book. I wrote it in 2018. It was Business Book of the Month in England and in Singapore. And we've also run a number of events in Cambodia with the capacity specialists with Edmund and Gabriel and Peck. And we basically, the reason that I wrote it was I wanted to democratize, to make innovating out there for everybody. You know, everyone can innovate, not just a couple of special people in Silicon Valley or in a garage somewhere coming up with some technology. Everyone can innovate, and they need to know what they're good at and develop skills to get better at it. So what I did in the book was I interviewed 6 real people from different organizations that represent these different phases in terms of their skill set. So for example, Ricky, who's a senior area director in South Asia and Leo Pharma Asia. So he's responsible for commercializing product. So all the innovation in product comes from Denmark to Southeast Asia, and then he has to get all his teams across the region innovating in sales, marketing, commercial strategies to get the product out to market. So we've done a lot of work with Leo in helping them to do that. And then we've got Thomas, for example. He's very much comes from the invest skill set, and he works with he was an angel investor, but he now works in a big bank looking at fintech innovation. A very, very different skill set, very different, but we need all these different types of skills to make innovation work. So what we have done is we've created a way to measure people's skills. Now, remember, this is it's not a competency test. It's not like we're measuring and can say, absolutely, you are brilliant at doing, you know, being an identifier. It's a confidence measure. It's how good do you think you are at certain skills. So we have 3 different profiles. There's a profile that comes with the book, which we call the book report, and it gives you your top strengths. This is my strengths. So on the 6 I's, this is me. I think I'm good at identifying opportunities and coming up with new ideas. I tend to jump investigate. Okay, invest. I like to just get on and do it. Then I want to jump into the next thing. And I'm aware of that. I'm aware that that's my innovation style, if you like. Then we have a second report which measures the importance that the skills are to the individual in their job. Because, so for example, this person here says they don't think they're very good at invest, but, oh, actually, it's really important that they are good at it. Now, does this mean that they need to become good at it themselves? Not necessarily, but they need someone in their team that's good at it. Otherwise, they're not going to be investing in the right ideas. They are good at coming up with the ideas. They're not so good at implementing them. So it helps to give people a gap analysis between their skill sets, perceived skill sets, and what they think is important. And then we have a full report, which goes down into the detail of 36 skills that are required to innovate in all these different I's. So this helps us then to build teams. It helps us to understand how we as individuals contribute our skills, and then we can look at how the team can be formed together. So like we did before, have a think about you now, not the organization, but which I, like I'm high on Identify and Ignite, I think. Which I do you think you are personally highest at in your skill set? So if you can write that in the chat box as well. Have a be, if you can be writing those in while I carry on, and then Edmund, we can come back and look at the results in a moment.
Sure, okay.
So what we can do, once we've got all the individual scores, we can put them together and look at the team. So for example, this team has got a few people in Identify. They've got nobody in Investigate. Nobody thinks they're any good at investigating ideas. Not many people think they're good at coming up with them or in investing in them. There's quite a lot in implementation and improvement. So this team needs to be thinking about how to make the people that are see themselves as quite good at invest, how can they help build their skills, because they're going to be better at investing than say somebody who thinks they're high on Ignite but not on that. So we can look at the dynamic of the team. We can take all of that data together and then start to work with teams to say, okay, what are you trying to do? You know, who are you? What's the purpose of the team? And then try to work out what's a good plan to help them bridge the gap between what's important to them and what they think they're good at. So this particular chart here, you can see this team think that they're quite good at identifying opportunities, but they need to be even better at it. So they've got 83% here, as in they say it's important to them collectively. All of the skills they want to get better at. I mean, that's quite usual anyway. But they're not so good at investing. So what might happen, and I see this over and over and over and over again, is that lots of people generate ideas and then they've got no backing, no resource, no money, no commitment to drive the idea through. So this helps to give an analysis of it. And we can look into more detail. So this is what we can start to do. If we're talking about building innovation as a capability, a competence, a skill set, a mindset or mindsets, then we need to have some, it's good to have some data to start to analyze what exists now. This is not a personality assessment. It's not a psychological assessment. It's a perception of strengths, a little bit like Strengths Finder, but for innovation. So how is the model unique? It's agile. We're talking about a journey here, and we need to be good at moving backwards and forwards, and we can start anywhere. We've got purpose always as a central point. It's more than about just having a process to manage ideas. We've got to be building systems and policies and culture to support all six, not just say a culture of creativity, but a culture of implementation, a culture of improvement, a culture of investigation. We've got the tools, the profiling tools, so that we know how to leverage people's strengths. And we can focus. We would say we're the only model in the world that focuses on the mindsets for innovation, because each of these I's has a very different way of looking at the world. You know, for Identify, it's the mindset of curiosity. For Implement, it's the mindset of commitment. Very different, you know, very different ways of looking at the world. And it's a flexible architecture. So you may be aware of other tools, you may use them. Design thinking approaches, lateral thinking, idea generation, business model canvas, all of these different things, they can all be plugged in. to the 6 I's, and that's why our clients like it. So here are some examples of some case studies. I just wanted to touch on a couple, and then Edmund will touch on a few. And then if there's any questions before we finish, then we'd love to hear from you, or we can answer them at a later date. So this is just some organizations that have been using the 6 I's, and you'll see it's quite a variety from universities. NUS, for example, in Singapore, we have worked both with their faculty and administrative staff, back office staff, and also with students. And we've trained them in the 6 I's, and then they've gone to work for corporate organizations to work with them on new projects with multinationals in Singapore. With Leo Pharma Asia, as I said earlier, we've done multiple projects. One of the big projects that we did with them was a talent development project around helping to upskill new leaders, but to help them develop innovation skills in the development of their leadership skills. So we focused very much on real business challenges, and then we took them through the 6 I's process and model, measured their innovation strengths, and then we worked on projects. And out of about 5 or 6, a couple went through, and one of them was in the Philippines, and it helped to grow their market from nothing to 15%. So what we're looking at here is when you can apply this on real business challenges that you're facing, and you can do it on any challenge. It can be a process challenge, a product challenge, a service or customer experience challenge. It doesn't really matter. The model is neutral. It can help you in all different ways, even at an individual level. The Weir Group, for example, very big engineering firm based out of Scotland, but international. They are working in a lot of process innovation in their area in engineering. So we've been using it in government, multinationals, and in universities, and a variety of small businesses as well. Edmund, do you want to say a last few words about some Cambodian initiatives?
I think one of the things that there are kind of 2 organizations that I kind of want to bring up, and I think that this is familiar for most people in Cambodia, which is the way by which 5 years ago, five and a half years ago, when I first came to Cambodia, every time that you go out, you have to go from one place to another. Grab and Pass app came out very quickly, and then after that, and then the entire everything changed. And then now the challenge is going to be, if you're not on Pass app, if you're not on Grab, you have a problem. And when it comes to innovation, especially when it comes to making sure that the customer is at the center of getting your innovations out there, it's not just about coming up with an app, but it's also about the question of whether or not your customers find that it is useful. Did you make it relevant to them? And I think that what ABA does is very good. It's also, then the reason for that is because, well, it's very easy to see. Go out into any business, go out into any mini mart, supermarket, computer shop, and most of the people, they will go over there and say that even if you don't have a credit card, you can use the ABA phone app, and then after we can use it to pay, because it is just that convenient. And I think that one of the things which we really have to go over there and look at when it comes to innovation in Cambodia, it is, one, the world that we are in is changing. What can we do to stay one step ahead? And 2, what do our customers really want from us so that we can actually cater to them? And I really like the 6 I's because it is a way to start a conversation in the organization. Um, I think that organizationally, what happens is that some people are always coming up with ideas. And then what you happen is that another group of people is going over there and saying, yeah, but this idea, the problem is here, here, and here. And then after another person will go over and say that, well, how are we going to pay for it? And what is going to be the impact on business? And what happens is that usually when it comes to an innovation cycle, these groups of people are all fighting each other in the organization and nothing gets done. And what's great about the 6 I's model is every person has a part to play. Every mindset is useful and precious. Somebody that comes up with ideas all the time, fantastic, great ideas, cannot execute because doesn't follow through. So many fantastic ideas, don't know which one is useful and which one is more useful, or which one is more valuable to the organization. And then after the person that does the but, he's the one that goes over and says that let's investigate all of those ideas and pick one or the other. Trying to convince everybody to get onto the same into the same direction. People like that is also useful. Implementing it, pushing. I know because I am strong in investigate. I'm strong in ignite, and I'm strong in identify. And my problem is that the next new idea that comes along, I get distracted. And people who are in implementation are going like, "Don't, Edmund, focus on this. Let's keep going until we finish the implementation," and that's really useful. And so having a 6 I's model helps everybody find a place in the entire innovation process so that everybody can contribute to your strength. And I think that that's really useful.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Edmund. So one last question for everybody. What will you do to encourage more innovation in your organization? And you can write in the chat box, if you like, what you are going to do. Having heard this today, and hopefully it has inspired you to think a little bit differently, and also given you something practical, a practical tool, a practical approach to innovating and to thinking about this big subject, which is often very misunderstood. Edmund, do you want to have a quick look at the results and just let me know what you, with the identify and with the ignite, and then if there's any questions from anyone, please also write them in the chat box, and we can always get back to you with some answers, because I realize that we are now nearly at 4 o'clock Malaysian time, so I think it's a bit earlier for you.
So we have got four of us who are very good at implement, 2 on improve, and 2 on ignite.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So
some implementers, yeah, good.
Excellent. So it's great to see a lot of implementers over here, and it's fantastic.
Great, and I can see here there's planning for the purpose of innovation input into the learning program and proposing this to top management for approval. Absolutely, that would be great. Sharing with your team the 6 I's model and how to apply it for some ideas we have from staff. It is very engaging because everybody, as Edmund said, everybody has a role. And I can remember in Cambodia when we were working there a few months back, it was, you know, one lady came up to me and said, I never realized I was an innovator because I didn't think I was that creative. But now I realize I'm an implementer and I can make a creative idea work. And it was a huge revelation for her. So I think if you're interested in engaging people and helping them understand the relevance and the role they can play, that's when you start to shift behavior and ways of thinking and mindset.